better off the
Yeah,
cuff.
we do. Hello, Onahaganisingkas, Anabechu, Nababiya Dachina. Welcome back, everyone, to Rising Warriors, Rachael Kulei. I am enrolled member with Shoshone Band and Northwest Band Shoshone Nation. Excuse me, sorry. Uh, we're kind of having our little talk before we started
Little
here. So
powwow.
our powwow, we can say a powwow.
Welcome to our powwow. You're all invited.
Yes, welcome back. So I have Gary Jenness back with us, Native Outlawz, and I asked him to come back to finish part two of our last interview. We finished speaking, and there was just so much more that we were talking about off camera that I really, we both felt that we needed to share this, and we have more messages that we would like to share with you guys. So real quick, I'm going to have Gary just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody about yourself a little bit. Those that didn't get to watch the last interview, take it away.
Okay. All right. Well, you probably heard it before, but my name's Gary Jenness, and I'm Native Outlawz Most Wanted. So that just pretty much means that I run Native Outlawz. So um, I've been doing that for since 2012, and basically as a place for natives to come together to share pride. But today, in today's times, I feel it's more important to do as much with it as I can because I've built up a pretty big fan base, and I realize that. So I do try to help natives. My big thing is native supporting natives, and it kind of caught on. The shirt that I'm wearing right now, this is from Delwyn Lewis over at Creations Inc. This is one of his
Mm-hmm.
designs, and it starts off with
Yes.
native supporting natives.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, each of these feathers has a native page that he supports, and you can see it on top. Native Outlawz. That's me.
Yes.
So this is pretty much what natives supporting natives is all about. You support me, Rachael. I support you, and I try to reach out to as many natives as I can, support them, and it's all about supporting each other, especially through these hard times. And with the quarantine, everyone's stuck at home. No powwows, no gatherings. It's pretty much social media is where it's at. So
Exactly.
fortunately for me, I'm in a good spot where I can help people, reach a lot of people. So, and yeah, having a page is it's filled my heart. I get a lot of messages that really touch my heart, and of course, I have haters. I deal with them. I just just goes over my head. Not a big deal. But the people who take the time to reach out and message me and talk about how my page has touched their page or changed or touched their lives, changed it in some way, that really makes me happy and really makes me feel like I'm doing a good thing. So, yeah. So
You are.
social media is where it's at. This is the new powwow right now, right? What do you do?
It is. This is the only thing that
It
we can
is.
do. So this is what we're doing, and I absolutely love it. What everyone's doing on Native country, supporting each other, and I love
It's brought
what
up a
you
lot of
do.
people that you normally wouldn't see. Like I said, I've come across storytellers. I've never really done that before, but I watched, listen to their stories, and then, man, they're teaching our history through words. So very
Yeah.
cool. And yeah, a lot of people are. I mean, I've had a lot of time to sit here and look for people, and I'm coming across a lot of people that I've never heard of before, topics that I've never dealt with before. But but yeah. So if I can use Native Outlawz to put a spotlight on somebody, I'll do that. It makes me feel good, especially when somebody really isn't known, and then all of a sudden, boom, they get all these messages and likes and comments about their work, and it touches
Hmm.
me. That's why I do what I do. Just recently, I've had quite a few, and it just really almost makes me cry.
Right. It's really touching with the messages, even just with the messages that you've sent me that people have said, it's really touched me to hear those messages too, because this is hard. It's not easy for us to be vulnerable, to talk about generational traumas and things that have been hidden behind doors and been kept quiet for so many years. And now we're just like we're done being quiet, And it's
Yeah.
like almost like
Right.
the throats are finally like, no, we're going to be heard now, and this is the truth, and this is our truth, and I'm sorry if you don't like it, but this is what happened. And this, how are we going to make change if we don't address what really needs to change and needs to happen to make things right, to mend things that have been broken. And there's a huge trust that has been lost and broken from day one, and it's generational. So we have huge, I was talking to someone the other day, when you're sitting back and with a bunch of white people, you kind of sit back and you really observe in a group setting, and you really have to look at everybody's walk. We look at everybody's, the way their spirit is it matching with their walk? Is it matching with their words? Is it matching behind closed doors? And but the thing that makes it hard is we actually see, when by doing this, we see the tricksters. We see a lot of the people that, they think they've got it and they don't, or they've got big ego, and um, they're not willing to listen, or even sit down to even have this conversations that we're having. They're
Yeah.
very closed minded to it. They don't want to address it. And I was
It's
thinking
it's
about this
it's
the other
painful.
day. It is. And I was thinking about this the other day. They want, the world expects the natives, they want us to do the healing. Okay. So we're doing generational healing. I'm working on, and I know you're working on it. And through the things you're doing, you're working on your generational trauma, the healing that has happened. Me, I'm working on this. My family, we're working. There's so many natives that are working on the healing for our ancestors for the next 7 generations to come. But at the same time, I was having a conversation with myself the other day, and it was like, where are the white people that are doing the healing for their ancestors for the traumas that they caused us? So it's
Yeah.
kind of
I don't
like,
see that.
where are, they want us to do the healing, but are you, the white people, are you willing to focus and do the internal, looking at yourself and your ancestors? And what is it that you can do that healing? What is it that you can do to change the generational trauma that of the suppression that is put on us, the racism? Address this. How are we supposed to go forward if we're not all addressing our own issues and self-reflection and looking in the mirror? And so it's kind of, I interesting, but at the same time, so we, at least someone's pulling together, and we're going to be like, all right, we're not pointing fingers. Yes, we know this was done to us, but we're going to work on the healing and we're going to move forward. And I think that's where the resilience that I really love about the indigenous and the native country is that, even through all the traumas that we've gone through, and losing traditions, trying to find traditions back again, we're still resilient. We're still pushing through. We're still trying to connect and trying to reach out and learn from other people, and um, you know, reestablish what was once lost in the new world. So that kind of brings me into the poem that you wrote, that I would really be honored if you shared that with everyone. The message that's in your poem it's not just for you, like you were saying, it's for everyone.
Yeah, I wrote it like 5 years ago, and I've posted it once or twice on my page. But it's really how I felt at the time when my page was starting to grow. It made me feel good, and it made me feel like I had a purpose, and maybe this was it, Native Outlaws. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and put my glasses on, pop it up, and read it out for you. All right, so it starts out as Native Pride. Our song and dance was against the law. Murder and injustice is all we saw. We laid down our weapons to end this fight. Your numbers were many, and your weapons were might. So you took my land and cut my hair too. Do you fear me less if I look like you? We go to your schools and your churches too. Now we're armed with knowledge to do battle with you. And now we dance and now we sing. Peace and harmony is what we bring. My heart is red and my skin is too. I'll always be Native through and through. So basically the underlying message was, I went to your schools, I went to your churches, and I'm armed with knowledge. And now I have all this pride in me, and I can put those both together to make a path, for myself. And I don't expect anyone to follow me, but for those who feel the same as me, who don't speak up about it, can follow me. Like I said, this is probably the first time I've openly admitted that I sold my rights. It's a bad way to put it, but yeah, that's what happened to me. It's probably what happened to a lot of people. So, and yeah, so anyway, I'm just trying to make up for it by doing what I do. Just a Native trying to make a difference. So,
I was thinking about that the other day because I was talking to my mom, and people don't really realize, and what we were doing was we were putting ourselves in your shoes, and we were putting ourselves in the shoes of your ancestors, is what it really was. Because it was like, when you told me this, and this is what I see too with a lot of people, is this is ancestral stuff again. This is, like, it's almost like your ancestors at one point felt like they had to do this too. They, in order to save their people, they had to, maybe go and be a part of the cavalry and help and scout and do different things to save your people, so that you could be standing here today. And so if we really start looking at patterns of our ancestors, we can actually start seeing that we actually still carry the traumas. We actually still carry their blood in us without even realizing it. So I was putting myself in your shoes, and as I was doing this, it was like I was seeing your ancestors at one point having to go through this fight, having to give up their land, having to have this peace in their heart, to walk away and have an understanding that we don't own the land. We own nothing. We are caretakers of the land. And so that was part of the thing, like when the white people came in, is we were open. They were open. Ancestors were open because, if this isn't our land, who are we to say who can and can't be here? If we have comers coming overseas and coming to, the land, it's going to be with welcome arms. The natives on your side, because you were on that side, of the settlers coming in during the first time. It took hundreds of years before they got over here to my people on this side of the United States. So your ancestors, if you think about it, they were there during the beginning of the settlers coming in. So it was like, what traumas, did they go through that you're carrying and that you're going through? But then at the same time, it's almost like, because of what you're going through, it's almost like you were called to be the one to do the healing for the ancestors, for your ancestors. It wasn't your sister, it wasn't, your siblings, your parents, it was like, it was called to be you to do this. And I see that because of this, it is empowered you. If you hadn't, maybe, sold your rights, in that way, you maybe not be here. You may not be, Native Outlaws may not be Native Outlaws. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? It's like,
I would just
there's
be one of the many members. But
yeah,
yeah, for
exactly.
some reason,
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, for some reason, I decided to put up a fight because I did lose my first page. It took me 5 years to build that page, and just like that, it was gone. And I almost just gave up. I didn't want to go through all that again. And then, like I said, a good friend of mine, Mark Gonzalez, who owned this page before me, and it was the Native American Circle, he donated it to me. He knew that I have a lot of heart and I do put a lot of myself into Native Outlaws. So he donated it to me, and I'm sure that was pretty hard for him. And so, yeah. But, and what I was going to say is, what we're talking about is, as a page owner, I run into a lot of people, a lot of messages. And of course, the white people say, why are you guys still crying about what happened hundreds of years ago? I'm not crying
Mhm.
about what happened 100 years ago. I'm crying about what happened to my mom. And because of what happened to my mom, is how I've been raised and grew up, and have now I'm giving my mom a voice, and her generation a voice, who had to cut their hair, who were punished for speaking their language. And it brings up another message that I got, another message that touched my heart. There was a girl who was in her 20s. She says she was turned on to Native Outlaws by an elder, because the elder said that I am Native Outlaws. He says everything that I wish I could say.
Oh,
Because sometimes I cross the line with my posts, but really, it's just sharing my pride. So a lot of people think that I'm racist or whatever. I'm just proud, and I'm just saying things that couldn't be said a generation ago. So that was another message that really touched my heart, that really I remember all the time. An older, somebody my mom's age, loves my page because of the things I say. So I give him a voice. That's kind of how I took it. So
well,
that makes me feel good.
it's really true because there's a lot of people that, because of that trauma, they can't speak up, but it's really us, to share our voice. It's up to, those that have that strength to do it, that you've been called, especially the younger generations. It's time to step up. It's time for you little ones to speak your voice, and we're relying on you. That's I kind of sit back and I'm looking at the world, and I'm like looking at the children in the world, and I'm like, this is our future. But I'm looking at the native children too, and I'm seeing a huge fight and shift and change in them, and I'm so proud of them. And for all the younger ones that are watching, it's so important to share your voice. It is extremely important, and you have to start somewhere. And even if you don't think anybody's watching, someone's watching. Someone's always watching, and it just takes the few right people to just kind of pick up the momentum and go. But there's people like us, that we see you, and I'll be reaching out to you, and Gary will be reaching out to you, and he, because we both are in that place of, really searching for the other warriors that are rising, that are, trying to make a difference, that may not have a huge platform but need somewhere to speak. Because like I was saying, it's like, I no voice is too small and no voice is too big to me. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, like what I was telling with you, it's like, no, your story needs to be heard. People's stories need to be heard. And like you were saying, they still think of, why are you still crying over this? And why why are you still hung up on, generation traumas? You have your powwows, you have your ceremonies. And it's like, well, actually, still, they're still being regulated. um there's
They didn't
still
start up till the
drills.
early '80s, right? They were
Exactly,
outlawed until the
after
early '80s.
AIM. Yeah, and it
So
took, AIM to really go through that. And it so, it takes time, but we're all here, and that's what I love seeing so many people just speaking their voices now and stepping up and sharing, their stories and things like that. It's an honor at the same time to be here at this time watching everybody find their voice. And through the pandemic, because I'm listening to a lot of people, it's on both sides. It's, this has been the worst year of my life, and this has been a hellhole. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, yeah, this has been, but at the same time, it's beautiful. And like I was telling one of my friends a couple years ago, I was telling her, I said, it's going to take something drastic in the world for the whole world to go through for a huge change to happen. And she kind of looked at me all crazy, like, what do you mean? Like, something drastic can happen on the whole world at one time? That's, kind of like impossible. And I just kind of looked at her and I'm like, no, this is dreams that I've been having. Something's going to happen on a global scale that's going to wake everyone up, because everybody's waking up, but they're not waking up as a collective together. And so for me, watching through this whole pandemic, it's been beautiful because I watched everybody wake up. and not only that, you're going back to almost the old way of living, of being slow and taking day to
Yeah.
day, uh, sitting and being with your family, having time to be with your family, having time to not rush out the door and go to work and slave away, and actually get to enjoy what it feels like to be with your family, to be with your loved ones, to go and be outside and to be in that quiet place. That's the place where you become more connected. And that's also the place where us natives have actually been being more connected, is through that, and finding it through the social media. But if you go and watch like what you've been sharing, you have all of these dancers that are dancing in their backyard now. You know how healing that is to the land, that people are
Yeah.
now putting on their regalia, they're singing more, they're doing things every day in their own home and outside, and it's not a powwow. That's beautiful to me. You know,
It's pretty much them
we're
sharing a prayer. When they
sharing
dance,
the
they pray.
prayer. Exactly.
Sharing
And
medicine for
so
all of us who can't.
exactly. And so it's like, but not only that, the energy in that, and if everybody praying, that's where even more of a change in collective happens on a whole nother level, is because those prayers, the earth, the energy, she care, so will be at Mother Earth, she carries us. And so when, like, it's important that we go and stand in the ground and ground ourselves, or stand in the earth, go for nature walks, be in those quiet places, gathering. And I want you to share your one story, because this is another, signs, things that we look for. People don't pay attention to the sky. They don't really look up. But we're, as natives, we're always looking up to the sky. We're always looking up to the star people. We're always looking up to the birds and the eagles. And so
Feeling connected.
when yeah, and be connected. And so we were talking earlier about eagles, and I just wanted you to share your story real quick, and then I'll touch up on what I had told you afterwards. So we were talking about gathering medicine, and we were talking about cedar earlier, and different things that happen, and signs of things that we see when we are in those places.
Yeah, I was we were talking about when we were doing our prayer and sage, and I happen to have some cedar because I have a cedar tree out in my front yard. So I was talking about how I have a friend, Carrie Sanders, who I met through Native Outlawz. She brought her son over for a visit. I gathered some cedar for them, and we were in my backyard. They were sitting around the fire. I was actually building a fire at the moment, and her son turned around and looked up and saw an eagle circling that tree that I just cut some leaves off. And so he says, "Is that an eagle?" And we all turn around, and sure enough, it was. And then as soon as we looked, the eagle swooped down right above, flew above us, took off. And it was just, at that moment, we all felt the same thing. We were just visited by a brother eagle. That was pretty amazing because I live in Oregon City, and I don't really see any eagles in my area. So it was just perfect timing. I mean, we were there to share medicine, we were there to share friendship. And yeah, and it felt really good because it was like 2 months into the quarantine. So people were starting to get out and about. She decided to come give me a visit. So that was an awesome day and an awesome experience. And we both looked at it, or we all looked at it as what it was. It was a message, We were there to share medicine, and it was, I don't know, ordained by an eagle.
Yeah.
So
Well, like I was
yeah.
telling you, what I was always told is that when those eagles are flying over, and that, like, what happened is, it's that, the ancestors, creators, there with you, and those prayers, those messages that are there with you, they're being watched over. And I was told too that long time ago, that tell a story real quick. So there, one day long time ago, there was these natives, this tribe, and there was the sick people, and they needed these prayers to get taken to prayer, taken to Creator, and they kept praying, and there was all these different birds that were coming in and saying, I can take their prayers to Creator. And so then, different birds, they would come in and try to take the prayers and carry it up, but because they were so small, uh they couldn't withstand the heat from the sun, and so then they couldn't get that high up in the sky, and they would come back down and they would get burnt. And there was all these different birds. One would keep coming in and trying to grab the prayers and take them up to Creator, but none of them could really do it until the eagle came. And the eagle used to be pure white, and there still is pure white eagles flying around, I've been told, and I've seen them in my dreams. And I was told that that eagle came down and says, I will come and I can help take those prayers for you. And so he came and he grabbed the prayers and he flew up and he kept flying, and he felt the sun burning him, but he kept pushing through. And as he was burning through the sun and going up into the sky, he the black started coming onto the body of the eagle, but it was just burned just a little bit on the outside. But he kept flying and flying, and he made it out into the top of that universe and that sky, and took the prayers to the Creator. And that's when the eagle had that medicine, and that's where, our ancestors, they can fly. That's where so now you see the eagle feathers. So now when we're dancing, our prayers, they're constantly being carried by those eagle feathers that we're praying. Even though that spirit in, the eagle maybe have passed on, the body has passed on, the spirit is still living within it. And that's why it's so sacred, and it's sacred not to drop it's not a good thing to drop the eagle feather. That's, to us, those that don't know, when you drop an eagle feather, that's like letting that warrior down. You just let that soldier down. You just drop that soldier that saved your life, that has been serving for you, that's been praying for you, that, for your freedom here. Even it's that soldiers, it's like letting them down. You let them fall. You didn't take care of it. And that happened to me one time. I'll share this story. A long time ago, when I started getting back into powwows, when I was about 16, 17, I had cut my hair, and so my braids weren't that tight. And my aunt, she was doing her best that she could to put my plumes in my hair. And during grand entry, no, it was right after grand entry in intertribal. And I just was dancing, and all of a sudden I felt it getting looser and looser. And then all of a sudden I didn't feel anything in my head. And I felt my heart just drop. And I stopped and I looked down, and there was my eagle feathers sitting on the ground. And I remember I was like inside, I was trying to stay calm and collected on the outside, but inside I was like crying. I was like, I let down these soldiers, I let down our warriors, I let down these men that have sacrificed, their life for me, and women. And then all of a sudden, then all of the traditional men come around. Then all of the color guard come around. Then any man that had that eagle whistle came around and prayed over that that eagle. Not only that, for those that don't know too, they'll completely stop the powwow. They completely stop the powwow, and all of the traditional men, they go around that eagle feather. I had to step away out of that circle. They had to pray over that eagle feather. Then not only that, I had to give an offering back to the people that blessed and prayed over that eagle feather. Had to give an offering back to the drummers that sang for me for that time while they were praying over that eagle feather. And they have different options that they can do. When you drop an eagle feather, they can either they'll talk amongst each other, the men, and they can decide that they'll give you that eagle feather back, and that, you know, they'll see, either like with me, they gave me that eagle feather back. They saw where my heart was. They saw that it wasn't purposefully done. I just had a nice reprimand talking to about making sure that my regalia, my eagles, my eagle feathers, everything was always secured tight before I ever step out on that powwow floor or in the ceremony. And every time, ever since that, have not dropped one since, but every time, because of that, I make sure it is secure in my hair. The other thing is they'll give it to your relatives, to hold on to you until they see fit that you can actually take care of that eagle feather, and then they'll give it back to you. Or I seen too, they'll take it from you, and then one of those veterans holds on to that eagle feather, and you don't get that eagle feather back. And that's when they really saw that you've really disrespected that warrior, and that spirit of that eagle, because it's still living. And so I guess the part of this is that, you know, the eagle is a very sacred animal, being. um, it's also one of the highest, and not a lot of people know this, but it's also one of the highest vibrations uh, in the earth. It's the higher vibration over a magnet. And so
Uh,
when we're blessing ourselves, and we're blessing ourselves with the eagle feather, we're actually, that eagle feather has so much power, and so that high energy vibration, that it literally pulls out that negative energy out of the body. So that's why you always are seeing the eagle feather. There's also other feathers, you know, other birds that have their medicine and their purpose too. I'm not dismissing any of the other animals and the eagles and the birds, because each one has their own purpose. But the eagle, especially in my tribe, um, it's a very sacred, that sacred thing. And the lessons that come with that eagle, you know, of being together, having, you know, your loved ones together, have, when you're driving or you're in those places, you know, the eagle flying over you. And so it's like that feeling. To me, it's always like, okay, I'm in the right place, I'm all right.
yeah,
Or I'll be driving down the road where you really don't usually see a hawk or an eagle, and I'll see one sitting there on the light post, and I'm having a bad day, or just needed to know that I'm being watched over, and I look over and there's an eagle sitting there, or you know, flying over or something. And then it always makes me like, okay, I'm all right. Like,
put you
I'm
back.
being watched. I'm being watched over. Like, I'm on the right place, even though I may be in the storm and I can't see clearly. You know, it's that, you know, holding on to that strength, and really, you know,
Knowing that your
I guess.
ancestors are there watching.
Exactly, exactly. So it's like, so I wanted to share that with you and with everyone too, because, you know,
Yeah,
that's
that's
an
pretty powerful
important.
story. I've seen a couple eagle feathers fall, and everything stops. It's a very spiritual and emotional moment. And you know, as an administrator or whatever, I'm always shooting videos. It's the one time people tell me no videos, so I've learned that lesson a couple times. But yeah,
Yeah,
I've
they'll
seen an
even
eagle
take
feather
you
fall,
down.
and it's just like you say. Everything stops. All the color guard comes, and they do their prayer, and yeah, it's very powerful, just like you said. So I'm
It,
glad you shared that. You know,
thank
it's
you.
I don't know. Maybe it fell just because we needed that opportunity to feel that spirituality. You know, I don't know. I don't ever look at it as a knock on a dancer for losing their feather. I mean, they dance hard. Stuff happens. Maybe it's just a reminder that hey, we need to stop and we just need to come together, do a prayer, and then go back. So, but
I agree with
it is
that.
very powerful.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's true, because if you want to take that to daily life, how many times do we, you know, go through life and then we make a mistake? But, you know, in the community, in the Native way, you know, we all come together, and how do we make this right? How do we address this? How do we learn from this? How do we grow from this? And I think that's, like, from me, the best thing, you know, because they could have easily yelled at me. They could have easily reprimanded me. You know, those warriors could have easily sat me down and finger pointed at me and drilled me, you know, and had me in tears, broken down crying to where I don't ever want to dance again. But
Yeah.
they didn't do it in that way. And in the Native way, it's taught with love. You know, it's teaching with love, it's teaching with that kindness, because if you want someone to learn, you have to talk, you have to be loving and have that unconditional love in a way, or else we can't grow, we can't learn, or else we're just going to be defensive and put our guards up, and then we're not going to hear anything. So I really, you know, honored those men that, you know, and at every powwow I see, and how they communicate, how they talk, how loving they are, even though someone messed up, or maybe, you know, didn't take care of something properly, or maybe they were rushing and, you know, just had to get into the grand entry but did not take that extra second just to make sure everything was secure and ready to go. You know, or maybe someone, you let someone put, you know, those feathers in your hair, and you realize later that you should have never had that person put that feathers in their hair. They were in the right place to put your feathers in their hair, and maybe that's also too why it fell, because I that happened to me. You know, it was all, there's all these different situations that can happen, but at the same time, like you said, there was, I really do feel now, like what you said is like, maybe there it was more for someone else that was watching, and why that eagle feather fell. It was remembering, you know, having to take that time, remember. People need to see these things too, because and witness these things, because they're just like, oh yeah, it's just the eagle feather, like big deal, I see them all the time. And it's like, no, you know, they have life. It is up to us to take care of, you know, that life and their spirit, and keep them alive. And, you know, it's our job. And the same thing with all of these other, you know, ceremonies we could talk about, and animals. It's, you know, those caretakers of, you know, those ceremonies with those, you know, those animals and whatever that may be. You know, it's our job to walk in that good way, and keeping their spirits alive, because that medicine with them in those animals is real. It's not just some hocus pocus. It's not some just made up thing, you know. It's really alive. Everything around us has breath. Everything around us is living. The trees are living. They talk. If you're quiet enough,
That's
you
a
can
spirit.
listen. Yeah. And,
Filled with
you
spirit.
know, yes, exactly. They'll talk to you. The plants, they'll talk to you. Um, I hear the plants talk all the time, especially when I'm gathering. My mom and I will be out there, and all of a sudden you hear, pick me, pick me, pick me. And then you're like, no, over here, pick me. I want to go. Like, I want to be used as medicine. And then you just like, you're like, it gets overwhelming. And we're like, okay, piece of candy, piece of candy. Like we're just going for, you know, but, but at the same time, I got to remember too, because I'm hearing this, that I have to say is, you always need to make sure you're giving an offering. People just think that they're just gonna take, and like, I can have this herb, it's just, you know, it's just right here, and yeah, okay, it's free, but you need to give an offering back for that plant, and whatever it is. So like, I have a thing of cedar here in my, you know, that I crush up. I sat there, you
Ah,
know, it's a lot. And you know, this
wow.
actually right here was actually a pillowcase full of cedar that is
Wow.
now in this box container I have here. But there's a lot of prayer that goes into that. You know, it's not that I'm just going out there and, you know, same thing I know with you. It's not like you're just going out there, we're just gonna pick cedar and oh yeah, good time. it's listening, it's connecting. It's also saying, this is what I'm going to use you for. You're going to be my smudge. You're going to help, clear energy. You're going to help, bless my home. You're going to help bless these other people. You're going to use you in ceremony, and you're going to bless the
You're
tribe.
putting your positive energy into it. Just like
Exactly.
braiding hair, you're putting your positive energy into that. So, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, always making sure you're giving thanks back to the land. And for me, I always carry tobacco. So I always have tobacco when I'm going different places, or, even if I am going into the mountains, especially if there are mountains that are not my tribe. I give an offering of tobacco before I enter into those mountains. I am giving offering before I go walk onto that path, whatever may be out there, that, I'm giving my offering, so that peace, I'm coming into your land, I'm respecting your land, your people, and I want to be a part of this, and witness this energy and the beautiful place here. Here's my offering for letting me be on your land. People forget this. And so every time, I go out, I'm always giving an offering. I go to the water, I give an offering. Thank you for the water, bless our people, bless the relatives, bless the water relatives. We there's so many along the coast, we live off the fish. They live off the fish. There's so,
Yeah.
we eat that fish. And so it's like, you give offering back, and making you hungry now, huh? Want some fish.
I'm due for breakfast, yes.
Want some fish. But so I think that's like a big thing, you guys, is offering. And it's not just a native thing, especially if you're not from any color, any indigenous, any color, any place from all the four corners of the earth. Anywhere you go, you should be giving that offering to the land and thanking the land for allowing you to be there and to take care of you and to provide things for you that are around. And it's very important that you also honor the ancestors and the land that you're walking on, and um your home, everybody's homes that's in the United States. Like, you are on native land that once was cared by a native, and we don't own anything. We come into this world with nothing, and we leave in this world with nothing but ourselves. We are caretakers of the land. We are
From the
caretakers.
earth and then back to the earth.
Yes. So I want to leave that with everybody, that we are caretakers. And, it is up to us to be respectful and to honor and to give the thanks back, and to the land, to creator, the beauty that's around. It's all alive. It all has breath. It all has its own energy. I could talk about this one for hours and days with energy and plants, because there's all these scientific facts and things like that. That's really cool, that show sounds. If you want to go look that up, you can go look that up. There's actual scientific proof that each plant plays its own sound and its own song. And so, that's a whole nother thing that we could talk about one day. But I just want to, leave that with everybody. And again, thank you, Gary, for being on and being here today with me,
My
and
pleasure.
and helping, supporting, supporting natives. And it's a good day to be something else.
Native supporting natives. Heck yeah.
It's a good day
It's
to be
not,
something
it's not
else.
just a saying. It's not just a saying, it's a movement. We all need to support each other. So, if you're looking for some cool native wear, make sure it's from a real native artist. So, yeah.
Yeah, and do your
I mean,
research and background checks on stuff.
yeah, exactly. Because we all need to support each other. So,
Yep.
Thank you for
So,
supporting me, Rachel, and I will
oh,
support
thank you
you.
for supporting me too. You know, that's what
Heck
it's
yeah,
about.
natives
So
supporting natives.
family, it's how we got to be. So it's the only way that we're
That's
going to
why
make
we're
some
here.
difference too. Yep.
Yeah,
So
you know, as long as we
it's an honor to
converse.
be with you.
Thank you, Rachel. It's my pleasure and honor too. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who is watching. And stay tuned for next couple of days. There'll be another amazing guest speaker with me. Thank you, everyone. Oos.